haven't uploaded to the Twitch channel in a long time, like a very long time. And there's a lot of information that I want to uncover to you all that have stuck with my channel. So I know that, Aries or Alex or other people may be watching this. I haven't been uploading in a long time. I'm not sure how many people are going to watch videos on my the videos on my channel, this channel, because I've been uploading to a separate Roblox channel that I have, and I kind of want to keep them separate, so I'm just going to go over everything. So, hello everybody, I'm back. I'm not dead. I know that I haven't been uploading for a long time. I almost died. I almost died many times, including this month, December of 2025. It's actually now 2026 of me recording this. It's New Year's Day. So I'm going to give you a quick recap of everything that's been happening. So a lot of things have been happening. First of all, I came out as transgender. I think that's one of the last updates I gave on my channel. I moved out of my dad's for a while. I had a job. I was in a poly relationship. That didn't work out. And then I had to quit my job due to mental health reasons after doing physical labor for 5 months in the summer heat and doing college. College eventually wore and tore on me, caused more stress this fall semester, and then I entered into basically a crisis in December of this year. November. I had a boyfriend for a bit earlier this fall that didn't work out well. I had a lot of fights. I had a fallout with a friend. I had some spells of like alcoholism. Well, not alcohol, like abusing alcohol to cure my sadness, and like near suicide attempts and everything like that. Starting in November, and then December of this year has been the most turbulent. So I've had multiple suicide attempts with caffeinated energy drinks and combining it with my depressant medications that depress the central nervous system. I also take a couple blood pressure medicines, not for high blood pressure, but for other things, like other reasons. So there's that. Yeah, so I mixed the two of them, and it almost killed me a couple times. The main chunk of this video is going to be the most serious, most intense part of it, which is a near-death experience that I want to share, because I've had one. I'm only 21 years old, and I've just had my first near-death experience. And I'm going to share it with you all in detail. So yeah, I had multiple suicide attempts. I had an inpatient stay at a psychiatric ward. I found out that I likely have a heart condition called POTS. I'm getting evaluated for PTSD and borderline personality disorder. I've had a lot of crying spells, panic attacks. I've had multiple days of near attempts. I had unintentional overdoses of alcohol at one point when I went to a Mensa convention earlier this month. I had like 12 ounces of wine when I thought I poured 6 and I almost blacked out. I had a biking accident on the highway, sort of. Not like an accident like I collided with a car, but like I collapsed on the side of the road because I was just so exhausted. And I was like trying to breathe as hard as I could, and 2 cars had to pull over and ask if I needed an ambulance. I had a flight nightmare in Dallas, which I won't get into, but it was related to my first attempt, since my first attempt happened in Dallas. And then finally I had to take incompletes this semester for college, and I do not know whether I'm going to continue college. I think I probably am as time goes on. probably will finish, but I had to take incompletes, and I have a year to do them. I'm also going to go on the Appalachian Trail in 2026. I know, huge amounts of announcements. I haven't posted to this channel in a long time. I'm also going to be doing the Appalachian Trail in 2026, so wish me luck on that. What I'll say about like my personal beliefs, my identity, everything has changed from the beginning of the year. Basically everything. You know, I went from a pretty, I guess, liberal Republican, you could say, like, to a pretty deep socialist in 1 year. My religious views have changed. My identity has changed. My gender identity has changed. I'm taking estrogen now. Everything has changed about me since the beginning of this year. And I think because of the rapid amounts of changes in such a short period of time, it's added to some instability. And it'll just take me some time to adjust, hopefully. So now I'm going to tell you about the most intense month, December. So I've had multiple suicide attempts this month. Well, actually last month. It's now January 1st, 2026. And I wanted to give you the most potent experience of my fucking life. The most unbelievable experience that I've ever had. And this is going to be far more detailed than if you watch my Roblox channel, because I've been piecing together the information throughout the days as the days has gone on, because I just had a near-death experience. So, as you know, I mixed energy drinks, Red Bull, with CNS depressants and blood pressure meds that I take for sleep. And I didn't have my near-death experience right away, but I did have symptoms like I got up in the middle of my sleep and misplaced items, and I also had a bit of pulmonary edema because I remember fluid being released from my heart into my chest cavity, and I had to cough it up, and my body had to get rid of it. And luckily I didn't drown, but I really could have. And there could be heart damage, which is why I'm seeing my general provider pretty soon. So, and also to get diagnosed for POTS. I'm going to get diagnosed for POTS tomorrow, January 2nd. It's technically like 12 a.m. is of me making this. So, yeah, it's really tomorrow. That's what's going on. But, okay, so that's the story. I had an attempt because somebody rejected me. I felt really shitty about it. I didn't try to manipulate or coerce them by saying that I was going to do anything to myself if they didn't get with me. Alright? This is just somebody rejected me and I felt like complete shit as a result of it. So I attempted my life because of it. And, afterwards I had to like block them and everything because I had like so much trauma or like so much lasting impact, and it wasn't their fault. I made sure not to blame them or anything, but whenever I get like a huge rejection on something, like I can spiral out of control. So, and I can become really impulsive because it really hurts me a lot. It hurts me a ton to not get acceptance, like not being accepted, not getting a partner, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like, I made sure not to be manipulative because I didn't want to say something, like, if you don't get with me, then I'm not going to, or I'm not gonna live anymore, or whatever. I didn't want to do that. But anyways, that's what led to my attempt. This happened on December 19th, 2025. In the morning, I decided to go in the psych ward, so 12:20. I told the nurse about my symptoms at the psych ward. I told her about it. And she just took notes and said, you know what, we're just going to let you in. So apparently, in the ward, you don't have to be medically cleared to actually, you don't have to be medically cleared to be in the ward. So this is where our story begins, right? And I'm going to post a timestamp around this here. This is where our story begins. So I had my attempt. It led to heart and lung damage or injury because for the next couple days while I was there, and even when I got out, I had heart inflammation and I had inflammation in my lungs, generally in my chest area, and shortness of breath whenever I stood up, things like that. I never got medically cleared. And so whenever they took my vitals at the hospital, my blood pressure would be wacky, my heart rate would be wacky, especially with the potential POTS, and SpO2 my SpO2 was very wacky as well. Not because I had low oxygen, but even something worse than that. I likely had poor circulation on the left side of my body or whatever in like my fingertips, and so I would get oxygen values of 80. 80 is not a B, by the way. It's not like 0% is an F. 0 to 50 is an F, 60 is a D. That's not how blood saturation works. Oxygen saturation is like, if you're not above 90%, you should be hospitalized, right? And so I was getting readings of as low as 86%, right? And I didn't think anything of it at the time because I knew the readings were bullshit. I knew my oxygen levels were 86. But the problem was that there wasn't enough blood circulating in my fingertips, and we'll see how this leads to our problem later. So yeah, I had heart and lung inflammation all day. For the next 2 days I was there, I had O2 levels that were weird. I had blood pressure that spiked whenever I got up. They spiked. And like the diastolic especially spiked. So yeah, that's kind of the main that's kind of the main things that have been happening. That's kind of the main things that have been happening, or before we got to this near-death experience. So, right. So here's the setup, right? The caffeine that I took like 48 hours earlier, now I'm on the down end of it. Now I'm crashing. And now my body has to absorb all of the depressant medications that I took. And so I had not taken my medications on December 21st. This is the day where I had the near-death experience. However, I was given a beta blocker for anxiety called propanol, which I got a relatively low dose, but it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. This is where things become really scary and also interesting. So, like, after my upper downer mix and after not being medically cleared, my system was exhausted. This beta blocker gets introduced. And we have these recliners in the ward, and they only recline to around 15 degrees. So you're not lying flat, you're lying almost flat, which makes a big difference on how blood flow is to the brain, right? And so, and combined with those wacky SpO2 values that I talked about, the oxygen values, which were all fucked up when they went to my fingers and everything, we're talking about like poor blood flow to the brain. So I just decided, well, I'm going to go to sleep. You know, I took my anti-anxiety med. And keep in mind, I had no medical clearance at the time. And I also had I had another toxic overdose, 2 toxic overdoses on, the, with my meds and the energy drink shit before this attempt. So, yeah, that's the backstory there. So, I go to sleep on this recliner at this 15-degree angle, and I'm super tired at this point. I have severe insomnia because the recliners are not that comfortable at all. And you know that you need sleep for body functions, for all body functions. It's important for circulation. It's important for everything. Sleep is important for everything. So I had poor sleep during the time I was at the ward. Alright, now I'll cut to the chase. I go to sleep and I'm dreaming about the hospital. Just normal dreaming, nothing wrong. I have a little bit of sleep paralysis, but I'm so tired that I ignore it and I go deeper into sleep because I suffer with a bit of sleep paralysis. And so I'm sleeping, I'm just having a normal time, and then all of a sudden I go deeper and deeper and deeper into sleep. And then I'm like, okay, I think I'm done dreaming. You don't actually say that in sleep. It's not like you could just wake up whenever you want. Your body kind of decides it. But in a way, I'm gonna steal a plane actually. I'm gonna steal a plane here. Hold on, I'm gonna steal a plane. I want a plane. So yeah, when my body said, okay, it's time to wake up, and I was like, alright, I'm gonna get out of this dream. Kind of subconsciously, because it's not a super conscious thought. It's not like you could just go to sleep out of whatever. My body couldn't. I could not get out of sleep. And I was like, well, that's strange, kind of in my sleep. I was like, that's strange, That's really strange. I can't get out of my sleep. And I try, and my brain would just kind of shift into a more dim dream with, dimmer colors and things like that. And it's like, I just can't get out. I can't get out. And there was this voice, and this voice said, Astra, because that's my trans name, and that's what I go by. Astra, you're not going to wake up. There wasn't a voice that said that to me, but there was this general feeling, and kind of a little bit of a voice that said that. Not like a person that said Astra, but kind of a general feeling, and a little bit of a message was given to me, Astra, you're not going to wake up. You're not going to wake up. So I was like, oh shit, well, how am I ever going to get back to the physical hospital that I was dreaming at, right? And then all of a sudden, everything kind of goes blank. My dream state goes blank, everything goes blank, right? The hospital with the dim colors, kind of like the dim, greens and blues and stuff like that of a hospital. You know how hospitals generally kind of have, light colors, even mental wards? That's out. That's now out. And now I'm left with this void state. And this void state, I'm not going to risk it. Maybe I can shoot it down. I'm not going to do that. I want to focus on my story. So, the void state, right? I can't tell if it was white light or black light, but it was generally a mixture of the two. I feel like I was surrounded by a brilliant light white room. Just light in general. And I arrived there, and I felt so detached from my body at this point. I wasn't thinking about my body in sleep anymore. I was like, I'm in a separate realm. This is crazy. I'm in a separate realm, and I think I'm dead. I kind of was like, I think I'm dead. So I'm in this realm, and it's like a void realm, and there's some brilliant light, and there's also some really dark, void, there's a really dark void state as well. And this authoritative voice is run as fast as possible. This male voice, it's not necessarily human, I would say. It just doesn't sound stereotypically human. But it's like a male voice, an authoritative voice. And the voice says, run as fast as possible, and scream at the top of your lungs. Yell at the top of your lungs that you believe in God. Alright? Now, I don't know which God. Could be the Christian God, could be the Muslim God, could be any of the gods. I don't know. Right? I have no idea. It just said, run and believe in God. And So, and shout it. And so the hospital grid is spinning, and it's a top view grid at the hospital. There's no sounds, there's no temperatures. Like, I wasn't feeling cold, I wasn't feeling warm, there was no wind. It was just a void state. And I was like, okay, well, the void is terrifying. There's nothing here. And I feel terrified right now. Like, I regret everything. And so, and now, believe it or not, even though I'm traumatized and everything, I'm not actually that scared of death anymore, because I kind of know what it's like, because I was at that point of death. So I run, and the grid is disappearing away from me. Now, it's not disappearing very fast, but it does take me a great amount of effort to sprint and reach the point of the grid. And I'm shouting, like, I believe in God, I believe in God, I believe in God, as I'm like running, right? And it's like a spinning grid. It's a top view grid of the hospital. Yeah, I don't want to collide with that plane. And once I reach it, then it's a brilliant light, like it's a white light. And the top view grid of the hospital kind of turns 3D, but it doesn't turn fully 3D. It's like two sides of the cube kind of light up, like the hospital grid, right? Once I reach it. And once I reach it, I'm like, I reached it. And so I'm waiting there for a little while. Now, I don't know how long I'm waiting, but I'm waiting there for a little while. And then I'm going up in the clouds in my dream, basically. Like, I snap out of the dream state, and it takes me a while to regain, I think, consciousness, really. And so I wake up, and I wake up in the hospital again with this huge headache, like this absolutely nightmarish headache. Now, it's not like I hit my wall kind of headache. It's like a grogginess, like a dizziness kind of, and I'm like kind of confused, and I have a really, really bad headache, right? And it's like I'm missing something. And I'm thinking to myself, this is probably cerebral hypoxia, which is when the brain is not getting enough oxygen. So I breathe, even though I'm not out of breath. Now, you might be wondering, why weren't you out of breath if you had these hypoxia problem? Because it's likely that I had respiratory depression from the medications and from the beta blocker, propanol. Right? So basically, you don't feel out of breath when you're hypoxic always, if that makes sense. Right? You don't feel out of breath. So your mind thinks everything is okay. But I'm consciously thinking I have hypoxia. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take some breaths. Now, nobody noticed that I was like, I had blue skin or blue lips or anything, but that doesn't matter. That's a common misconception in hypoxia. You can actually, your oxygen can be pretty low, and your lips can be red, and your skin can be pale. And besides, when I was asleep, and it took me a few minutes to regain consciousness, that would probably be the time that my skin was blue or pale and my lips were blue or pale, right? That would probably be the time, not by the time that I actually woke up, where people could actually see me. So I wake up with this headache, I'm breathing for a while, I tell some people about what happened, they tell the nurses are idiotic. Right, the nurses don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So yeah, I'll just say that. And trust me, I know as somebody that has less education than them, they don't know what they're talking about. Right, like, when I had my O2 readings, they were like, anything below 82 and we start getting concerned. Like, 82, you gotta understand, an SpO2 value of 82 is like you're in the ICU, and they have tubes down your throat because you're suffering from brain damage from hypoxia. Like 82 is, you wouldn't even be conscious. So these nurses don't really have any idea about the POTS or the hypoxia or the aftermath of the stimulant depressant mix or anything. They're just novice nurses, right? And so they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. So I go in the nurses, and they're like, well, your lips are red and you're fine, so... And this was after like 10 or 15 minutes of breathing when my oxygen recovered, right? So we're not probably talking about extremely severe hypoxia, because if I had it extremely severe, then I probably would have had brain damage. But we're probably talking about life-threatening hypoxia and respiratory bradycardia, profound bradycardia, and bradypnea, which is slow breathing, slow heart rate, slow breathing. We're probably talking about life-threatening hypoxia. You don't have to come out brain damage, but what I'm saying is, like, I probably wasn't at the moment that my heart was going to stop, but I was still in that near-death experience, and I was still at the point of death, if that makes sense. Like, I wasn't far away from my last breath and my last heartbeat. So I go in the nurse, they say everything's fine, I make a journal of it, and I'm thinking about it throughout the days, what it was kind of like, you know, what my experience was kind of like. I've been piecing things together. And I took a scale called the NDEC, which is a 2020 scale. So it's very accurate, very modern, that details the near-death experiences that people have. So it's like, you know, it's like, it's a very modern tool. And if you've had a near-death experience, you can take it, and if you score above a certain threshold, then it's actually likely that you had a near-death experience. Now, keep in mind that not everybody that scores high actually was medically close to death. You can actually have a near-death experience in things like anesthesia or meditation. So keep in mind, and a higher score doesn't necessarily mean I was closer to death, but it does indicate that it was less likely to be a dream or a REM intrusion. So the clinical cutoff for the NDEC is a 27. It's a self-assessment. I scored a 50, so I scored nearly double the threshold, and I actually scored a few points higher than most people that have genuine near-death experiences, like cardiac arrest or severe hypoxia. So that's my experience in the ward that I wanted to talk about. So what do we learn today? We learned that whenever a patient has a stimulant depressant mix, that just because the main impacts are over does not mean that they're out of the blue. What do I mean by that? I mean that 48 to 72 hours, they can still die. And that's true. They can still die. People in that 48 to 72 hour range are at an acute risk of death if they're not monitored. Even under hospital monitoring, sometimes you can die, right, from a thing like mixing a powerful stimulant and a depressant together, right? So the fact that they didn't give me medical clearance was extremely dangerous. And had they not, they would have been sued the fuck out of by my parents. I can tell you the ward would have been fucking sued to shit, and it would have been all over the news. And you know what it would have been more horrifying? When they actually tried to wake me up and I was clinically confirmed deceased, when I have no pulse and they have to lift me up from the fucking ground floor because I code blued. I code blued on the fucking recliner, which is basically when your heart stops and you're dead. You're flatlined. So that would have been awesome. I'm sure the other patients and the staff there would have loved to see that. And it was all because of the bullshittery nurses not giving me medical clearance. So guys, if you're in medical school and you're watching this, please, for the love of God, if anybody comes to you and says, 6 hours ago I just had stimulants and depressants and mixed them up, make sure they go to a hospital and they're cleared 48, 72 hours, because that's a critical time of monitoring, alright? So that's the first thing that we learned today. And, well, that's the primary thing that we should have learned today, right? is that you can pass away easily if you're unmonitored. When your patient is also expressing respiratory and cardiac issues earlier in the day, has wacky SpO2 values, shit like that, it's worth, like,
They'll write books about all of us.
it's worth getting medical clearance, right? And the nurses failed in doing that for me. And they could have costed me my life. I was perhaps minutes away from cardiac arrest and probably even closer in respiratory arrest. So, yeah, I'm just going to tell you all, like, please, like, yeah. Anyways, I think that's it for this video. So yeah, those were some general life updates. I'm sorry that I haven't posted. Everything in my life has basically changed since the beginning of 2025, now that it's 2026. Yeah, this is actually kind of peaceful. How are you? I hope you're well, driver of the boat. I do anticipate 2026 being my last year alive, and I don't say that just because of the S word. I say that because of physical complications and other things that could happen to me. Because I've had a few close calls with things besides the S word, suicide. So I do anticipate 2026 or maybe 2027 being my last years alive. We'll just have to see. Anyways, until then, I hope you all do well, and goodbye.